Hello, amazing people. I am so excited to be back with you all once again for another episode of Bloom. Today, we're going to be talking all about leadership, and we have a wonderful guest, Candice Frost, who's going to be joining us and leading this discussion with us today. I would like for you all to introduce yourselves, let us know where you're calling and dialing in from. We really want to make this a very interactive discussion. So if you have any questions as we get started, please feel free to ask. So our next guest, Candice Frost, is the commander of cyber intelligence operations. She is a mentor. She's a motivational speaker. She runs a podcast, and she's a wife, mother, amongst many different titles. She has an amazing amount of experience to bring to our virtual table today. And I'm so excited that we have the opportunity to pick her brain so we can multiply and continue to be great together and do great things. So let's go ahead and bring Candice out. Candice, how are you?
I am fantastic. Hey, great to see you.
Great to see you too. Thank you so much for blooming with us today. Thank you also to D. Black Newton, Shannon, Azura, Kelly, Tammy. Welcome, everyone. So you're in Washington, D.C., I believe. Is that correct?
That's right, on Capitol Hill. Yes.
Oh, right on Capitol Hill. Wow, that's amazing. So can you tell us about yourself, where you're from? Tell us a little bit about your military background as well.
Yeah, I am aware of many hats. I'm a leader, I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I'm an Army officer and a college professor, and most recently a small business owner and a podcaster. So I get to wear many different hats and do many different things. It keeps me busy, which is great. But I'm originally from Iowa, and I grew up the daughter of two great educators who provided me many opportunities. And I had a high school guidance counselor recommend that I look at West Point. And I didn't tell anyone. I applied. And I put all the applications in. My parents knew, but not many. And I was at a Bob Dylan concert when I got accepted to West Point.
No way!
My senator called and I wasn't home. So that kind of tells you, like, I didn't fit the typical military mold when I showed up.
I love that. You're at a Bob Dylan concert. That's amazing. I want to tell people a little bit about your website. You said, you're a small business owner, entrepreneur. Your website, we can go ahead and bring that up, colonelcandid.com. There are so many amazing resources that are on here, and I want to highly encourage everyone as we continue with this conversation to go ahead and subscribe. One of the main things that I wanted to point out is the mentoring guide and tons of resources for jobs, for people who have a clearance and things like that. So I just think this is amazing. Absolutely amazing. So how has being a small business owner been for you?
It's been fantastic. I gotta tell you, I've learned a tremendous number of lessons. I think the best part are the opportunities that are out there, especially right now in the field that people are looking for leaders that don't fit the mold. And for all of us, that's a big win. Those of us with many different backgrounds, I have found that people are looking for inspiration and stories from different angles, and that's fantastic. And they want to hear different voices. So the more people we can get around the table and kind of that great melody of not hearing the same cookie cutter answer all the time, it's fantastic. I really enjoyed it. And I'm learning a lot. A lot of people want to sell you stuff. So being a business owner, oh my gosh, I'm like, I'm not there yet. Like, I think a lot of people really, they want to profit off you as well. So you have to be cautious and cognizant of your brand and your message. Like, always, stay on message.
Yes, absolutely. You're so right about people always want to sell you something. It's that's the annoying side of it. That's the annoying. But I love that you started a business to help people and to mentor people. And I want to ask everyone that's dialing in and tuning in today, have you ever sought mentorship before? So comment in the chat to the right of you and let us know, yes or no, if you've ever sought mentorship. I'm just so curious about that. Your mentorship guide that's on your website is extremely detailed. I went through it line by line. It was very beneficial. I wish that I had something like this, but I'm glad that I have it now by virtue of going to your website. The mentorship blueprint, tells you exactly what kind of message to send to someone that you're interested in having mentor you, and what to say. I mean, it's very detailed, very, very
Yeah.
detailed.
And I took the time to, because I had mentored in many different ways and different facets. And so many of my friends, they just said, well, you're a great mentor. And it's like, I wasn't born this way. Just like leaders, you have to learn these lessons the hard way, but also you have to take that first step. So by creating this guide, I really started to broaden the approach for different people to kind of jump into this water, not only to learn how to be a better mentor. Not everybody needs to follow your path, as another theme that I talk about, but to ask for one, right? The hardest journey, it's that first step. So how do you approach different people? And I think that's incredibly important. If you see someone, and I always say, if you look up or look left and right and you're like, I want to be just like that person, you feel their energy, they make you smile, like, I love your message, I like what are you doing? Talk to them and ask them, hey, how did you get to where you're at? And bit by bit, you'll start to apply that model of someone helping shape you, not to be a Xerox copy of them,
Right.
but to follow closely along with some of the lessons that they've learned, and they can shape and mold you.
I love that. I love that a lot. I hear people saying yes, yes, yep. I have to say, I'll be the one to honestly admit, I have never sought mentorship before. That is changing since I've looked at your mentorship guide. That will definitely change. Yes, Starla said, yes, pursue your mentors. So you discussed also about the need to build authentic relationships. And I know, and I could just feel just from speaking to you, that you are a very authentic leader. And I know that will continue to resonate throughout our discussion here today. So can you tell us what it's like being a leader, a female leader in the military?
Yeah. And I think, especially when people bring up, being a female mentor, or I'm sorry, we'll talk about mentorship more later, but being a female leader, really leadership is leadership. It's not inherently male or female. There's no ownership by gender, but there's an approach that each of us bring. And I think being authentic about yourself and kind of admitting, hey, here are my strengths and weaknesses. And that's why I'm a really big fan of Strength Finders. There are plenty of books out there. There are some, I know, on the Christian spectrum. You've talked about it in some of your past episodes. You've talked also, there are some on the business side. So Strength Finders is a great way to kind of go to play to what you're best at, recognize those things you're not so strong. So, if, like for myself, I would be a horrible accountant, like dotting the I's, crossing the T's, sitting in a cube. That's my torture. But public speaking, engaging with people, feeling energy, zest and zeal, that's me.
Yeah.
So I let someone else do that accounting stuff and editing, and then I get to enjoy this part and I'll play to this. And just knowing that is really important as a leader, because then I take somebody who is, man, their office is meticulous. I'm like, I want you to work for me. Like, we're going to be on the team together because you have a strength I don't have. And that's a big part of engaging other people, finding their strengths and letting another teammate play to their strengths. And then you play to yours. It makes that team so much better.
I love that. That makes so much sense. So much sense. So do you have to separate Colonel Frost from Candice in any way?
Well, definitely in business, I do. So yeah, I should say the legal disclaimer, nothing I say represents my agency or the government or Department of Defense. There you go. The lawyers.
I have to admit, I was waiting for that. I knew it was coming.
Yeah. So I definitely do separate those two. And that's why even on my website, there are just a couple of pictures of me in uniform, not many. So I follow the intent and letter of the law, but I think it's important that we in the military service, we're still people. Like, I'm still, at the end of the day, my kids don't call me Colonel Frost. My kids call me Mom. And it's really important, I think, for those who get to a position of power, it doesn't matter if you're in the military, if you're a business owner, you have to stay grounded and humble. And
Yes.
that's really how I'm able to do that, is just surround myself with people that, really can speak truth to you and tell you, hey, man, that one you really messed up. And you get feedback, and teenagers give you the best feedback because they're
Don't
really
they?
honest.
Don't they? Don't they? I worked for someone before, and he had his PhD, and his daughter said to him, she was like, no, she said to someone else, she was like, my dad is a doctor, but he can't save anyone. Meaning he's not a medical doctor. But it was just like, he was like, children keep you humble. I'm like, they sure will.
Yeah, they definitely do.
They definitely do. So what do you say to someone that says their female traits aren't accepted by their male counterparts? Have you ever had an experience like that, or do you have any advice for someone in that position?
Yeah. So I have, and I think it's really important that you have to understand the culture you're walking into. And so the jobs that I've had in the military and even now in business, feel out what you're walking into. If you can sense an environment, because every workplace is different, right? Even, you go into different department stores, they're different. You turn on the television, there are different news channels, and they're very unique to the culture in which they're trying to sell or the culture in which they're trying to speak. So when you go into an environment and you're a woman leader and you're trying to lead a team, just recognize, hey, what's important? What are those artifacts? What are those things that they hold and this organization is sacred? Play to that. And just a great example, it's a conversation starter. I know there were certain organizations and certain bosses, they had a specific sports team that they loved. Well, heaven forbid, I would always look up, how did that team do? Who scored the winning touchdown or the home run? I just got just enough so that I could start the conversation. And I've had other female people tell me the same thing. They're like, yeah, and then you right underneath that quick intro. And now I have business to get down to, right? The cups of tea you had to drink in Afghanistan, very similar.
Right.
Get the table set and then go in for the conversation that you really need to have. It's just important to know your environment and the culture and the people you're talking to.
That's a good tip. That's fantastic. Has anyone else ever tried that before? That's a really good one. Do your research, basically, right? Before you have your interactions with people.
That's right. Know your audience.
Yeah, know your audience. Yeah, exactly. So were you always okay with expressing vulnerability as a leader?
Probably. I've grown a bit of thicker skin. I think that also comes with age. The ability to just say, you know what, I've got a great story to tell. It may not be the story you want to hear, but it's going to help you in whatever stage you're in life. And then I really kind of started to feel my way of growth. And by telling your story, you're amazed at the number of people who are like, yeah, I went through the same thing or something similar. Let's help each other out. And I think that's the power of story and communicating with each other in a way that's helpful to build each other up. Sometimes you show vulnerability, you've got skin in the game, and it helps you a lot as a leader.
Absolutely. I know that you're a big fan of Brene Brown's as well. Is that correct?
Yeah. She comes through. She is fantastic. I'm the biggest fan of Adam Grant. He is fantastic. The book Give and Take is one of my favorites. And he really talks about there are people in the world that are givers and takers, and most of us are in the middle. Sometimes we take a lot at work from other people, and we don't give as much to the rest. And so you have to balance yourself out with that. And he's a big idea thinker. Yeah, it's great. Wharton School and from Penn.
Oh, I'll have to do some research on him. He sounds fantastic. So how did you develop yourself as a leader? I know you said I'm sure you read lots of literature, and you just mentioned Adam Grant, I believe his last name was as well. How do you continue to develop yourself? Is it based upon your experience, or, what do you think has contributed to your success the most?
I think some of it is based on experience. You grow as a leader. But I will tell you most recently, I am a diehard podcast person now. Like I've gotten a
Mm.
tremendous number of tips on podcast, Facebook like this, YouTube, other ones. I think I still go to the classics in the written word, but because my commute time is rather long, I have just found to make use of that time. Same thing with like working out. I used to be music, and now it's like, okay, there's a really good book I want to get through, but I don't have time to sit down. So I got to fit two things in. So I just find time to get great information in my brain just through different means.
Absolutely. That's podcasts, audiobooks, all of that is an excellent tool, like you just said. A lot of times people don't think they have the time to do things like that, like
Yep.
reading, like you said. But like you said, it's just about maximizing the time that you do have and trying to find a creative way to fit it in. So I love that suggestion. Absolutely. So how has your perspective on failure and empathy evolved throughout the years?
I definitely think failure is something I've opened up a little bit more, and I've really struck this theme for I'd say the last 5 or 6 years by
Hmm.
being really honest. Like my big failure was going through a divorce after my ex-husband had post-traumatic stress disorder, and I had to be very vulnerable because in my culture, so much of the world is you raise yourself up by your bootstraps, right? You're a strong soldier. Never let them see you sweat, right? Wear body armor, no emotion. And it was like, I am a single mom over here with, a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old. I'm sweating. Like they're gonna see me sweat. This is hard. I need help. And when I started admitting that, people just really, I felt the sense of community so much more. So instead of hiding things, when I was very forthright and honest with people, I was amazed at the number of people who are like, "Hey,
Wow.
I see what you're going through. I've been there. Let me help you out." And it was pretty phenomenal. And then you see other sides of people you don't necessarily like, and that's okay, because when people show their true colors, that who the people you can rely on are.
Yes, absolutely. Like Maya Angelou said, when people show you who they are, believe them the first time.
Yeah.
But I mean, I just can't imagine. That just sounds like such stressful situation that you were in. But you know what? I think back to how many of us try to appear as we are perfect, especially when you're in a leadership position, because you have all these people looking up to you, and you think that you might have a blemish in their perception of you if you fail in a certain area. So
Right.
I love the fact that you were vulnerable and you shared your experience in the divorce that you went through, and it made you stronger. And I'm sure it made people respect you even more.
A lot of times they were like, "How are you doing this?" And it's like, "Oh my gosh!" I mean, I have a whole community of support. With I had a fantastic person that helped me in my house. And I'm like, people want to work, and so you can hear DC in the background, by the way.
Yes. I love it. I miss
Welcome,
it.
world. Yeah, this is our city. But no, I can really say that there's always a neighborhood kid that wanted to babysit, or somebody that wanted to help
Oh,
mow the lawn, or kids want to do. It's just like I just started enlisting all sorts of neighborhood kids, or hired out, and then realized I could only do so much. So I joke like, you got to get rid of the Martha Stewart. You got to
ah!
get rid of that mindset. Not everything is perfect.
Oh,
Kids will
yes.
live on mac and cheese and chicken nuggets. And for your listeners, my 10-year-old son started cooking for himself because he was like, I want a steak. And I'm like, here's the grill.
I love that.
He is
I
a
love that.
great cook now.
Oh, that's fantastic. I mean, you never know. He might be a chef, or it just might be something that he enjoys in his meantime. I mean, that's amazing.
It's unreal. He'll be like, I made these 3 different types of salmon for you, Mom. I'm like, oh,
Oh my
what
gosh,
a
what a
blessing.
gift. Oh my, wow, that's awesome. Deep Black Newton, she said, asking for help is necessary, but it's sometimes hard to do. That's very true.
Yeah. Yeah. So it is, because we, and so much of our culture here, you're supposed to be independent and powerful and strong, right? And those are great traits to have, but no person walks alone. And so when you start to ask community to gather and help you during your time, there were people I thought would help. Like, they're my friends. They've been friends for a long time. They were okay. But the people who had been through the same journey and walked the same path, man, they stepped up right away. And they were people I didn't necessarily expect always. But they helped me just because they had been through it and they lived through it, like finding divorce lawyers, talking through mental health problems, how to go for counseling. Those things were very uncomfortable because in most of our communities, you can have a broken arm in a sling and people will be like, oh, I'm so sorry you broke your arm. And then if you have something that's, cognitively, like I'm going through something really hard, you just can't see it. You can't see that wound. And so that's something, when you talk to people about it, you'll be amazed at the number of people who have been through something and can really give you great advice.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. Linda says people forget that it does take a village. That is very,
Absolutely.
very true. Very, very true. So you said, you had to leave and you deployed overseas to Afghanistan as well for a length of time. I mean, I just can't imagine. I'm sure that was very challenging for you. Did you feel at any moment that you felt distracted as a leader while you were over there in Afghanistan with your children back here in an environment that did not feel as positive and healthy for them as you would have liked it to be?
Yeah, I think I tell people the story. The first night away from my kids, I admit there were a lot of tears on that pillowcase. Now they were very young, so I would just, like, in my mind, sing the songs, the lullabies, and then I would go to bed. That was the first and second night. And the third night, I slept like a baby. It's the first night I had slept through the entire night because I was like, my kids were little.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
The third night.
Yeah. I didn't think about that. That's a good point. There's some benefits.
There were. So see, there's silver linings. So I do admit I wrote them a letter every single day. I found ways to just say, okay, I'm going to stay connected. Now, I mean, my oldest could barely read. My youngest would like eat the card. So yeah, they were babies. And it was hard, but I understood my commitment to the mission that, I had deployed, come back, had a wonderful family, and said it was my turn. It was my turn and my share of the burden to take that on. And I did it. And I had some phenomenal experiences. I happened to be in Afghanistan when Osama bin Laden was captured as well. So there were some really monumental things that happened. And I absolutely grew as a person because that was the time that I stepped back far enough and really exposed that vulnerability and figured out, okay, marriage is failing. Let's move on to the next chapter.
Debbie says, thank you for your service. Oh, yeah, absolutely. We definitely thank you.
It's my pleasure.
So, what was your support circle like at that time? You said you had some people that really gravitated to you. Did you have anybody in the beginning that noticed that, maybe things weren't going as well as you would have liked it to, and they came to you maybe and try to discuss it or anything like that and just see where you were at in your relationship?
Absolutely. As we circle kind of back to mentoring, I had some great mentors with me. And one was Colonel Tom Guthrie. And he knew I was grappling with something in my life. And, he's like, come on, Ranger, grab your headgear. We're going to talk about this. And you really, if you want to think in your mind's eye, that like gruff guy on the movie, kind of like really tough guy. And we walked a couple times and he would just talk through, let's talk through this decision. What do you really want to do? And after speaking with him, he's like, I can see why you came to that conclusion. And it was powerful because this is someone I respected and admired and really thought highly of. And for him to say something like that, it gave me courage and strength to say, okay, I can tackle this next thing. And that's why when you talk to, especially mentors, people you respect, they'll really help you through things.
I love that. Like you said, it all goes back to vulnerability.
Yeah.
Showing your authentic, true self. even things that you may be afraid that someone else may not accept, you just never know, they will. And if they don't, they don't.
Absolutely, Zakia. I mean, there were people I was like, hey, I really need your help. And higher ranking people, they're like, good luck. It's like, wow, I did not, you're like the super leader I had always looked up to. And then there were some people just, kind of brand new to the Army, lower ranking, very fresh. And they were like, ma'am, I'll help you through this. And okay. Just in random places, back to, sometimes the least expected areas, you find the greatest gifts. Speaking of bloom, there you go.
Yes, I love that. I love that. So you obviously, you have so much going on. You're a wife, you're a mother. There's a happy ending to your divorce story, of course,
absolutely. Right? Yes. So I tell especially friends, this is only a chapter in your life. Divorce and my tough go round was just a chapter. And lo and behold, I moved to Arizona. I meet a fantastic guy. I am married to my forever husband on the rim of the Grand Canyon. So yes, all is well that ends well. But you do got to kiss a couple frogs to get there.
Yes, absolutely. So that there's hope. Last week we had a discussion about marriage and we touched on divorce as well. So how perfect timing for you to come in and share your experience. And anybody that was here last week, I hope that they know that there is and can be light at the end of the tunnel, and that everybody deserves happiness. And I'm so happy, Candice, that you found your joy.
Exactly. And it's, it's an important part of who I am, but there are so many different parts. And I say that surrounding ourselves with community, all different shapes and sizes, you can find joy in many different places. And so, seek and find that goodness and happiness wherever it best fits you.
Absolutely. So, you have a podcast, you're a colonel in the Army, you a motivational speaker, you're a mentor. I mean, your mom, wife, you have so many different hats that you're wearing. You are extremely busy, and I know it. That's why I'm extremely grateful that you took the time to have this discussion with us today. What's work-life balance look? How does that look for you? How do you keep things in order?
So I compare a lot of this to, I was really lucky to get stationed in Hawaii. And so I started surfing when I moved out there, and that is talk about, you hit some reality quick when you're out in Mother Nature and the force of nature is all around you. She'll tumble you all around in the surf. And so life, when you're doing all these different things, you can let it wreck you, or you can realize like, I have to take it easy. I have to figure out what's the priority. I have to live in the moment. I can't look behind me and in front of me at the same time. So if I'm surfing, I'm in the moment, I can step up on that board and figure out how to maneuver. It's not just balance. Like that's what a lot of people say, like, okay, you have, my work or my kids, and let's balance. No, it's never, because there are days when you got to give 100% to your job, and your kids, you look at your spouse, you're like, you got them. And there are other days when your kids are like throwing up on you, man, when they're young. Like I can't plan an emergency. I remember telling a boss that, like, well, you should have told me this was happening. I'm like, that's why it's called an emergency.
Right, exactly.
So never expect to, life is not going to be a balance. Life is about priorities and understanding, and then also figuring out, hey, what's most important right now? Because it can't always be 50-50.
Absolutely. I love that. And I love the examples that you talked about with the children as well. I remember, one time I was going into the office and my son, he was only about, I guess, like 4 months old at the time, but I was in a rush. I was late for a meeting and I literally picked him up and he just like sneezed. And it was one of those wet sneezes, just all in my face. And I was just like, oh goodness, sometimes you have moments like that, or even moments that are just larger and you just feel so overwhelmed. But like you said, just give your 100% to whatever moment that you're in and just do the best that you can and, just push forward. I love that. I think that takes some of the pressure off of us as women or just leaders and people in general.
Another great analogy to remind yourself is, you can't drive a car looking in the rear view mirror,
Mm-hmm.
and you can't drive a car looking, 5 cars ahead. You can only be where you're at, especially in DC traffic, right?
Yes. Yes.
So you can only be in that area. You can't force yourself to be 5 cars in front. And if you reverse it and try to drive the whole way with the rear view mirror. So sometimes in life, we have to remind ourselves we are not what's in the rear view mirror. We do not have to constantly look back and be burdened with all the things, bad that have happened to us. And we can't force ourselves to be in the future. And that's another area where if you constantly say, well, you know what, I'm waiting for the weekend, or next year's going to be so much better, or when I finish this degree, or, when I get that next job, guess what? Be great where you're at right now. And I really like that. Start where you stand. Exactly.
Yeah.
That first step.
That's amazing.
That makes a huge difference in how you are grounded and then how you achieve success. Like so many of the different times you've spoken, with whether it's raising your credit score, whether it's understanding and building power, growth, all of these things.
Absolutely. I love that too. Start where you stand. Like you said, Candice, there's so many people, once we expose ourselves and our vulnerability, we show authenticity. There's so many people, like you said, who will rally around us and really try to help us with whatever we're going through. So we just have to be open and just willing to accept love and help wherever we are. I think that's, like you said, that's the beauty of life in general, because we all go through it. I mean, we've all had challenging times.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you ground yourself in that current moment right now, it's amazing how much strength you have. And, you can give yourself those little micro pats on the back, like, whew, I lived through that. Like, and look at me, I survived.
Yes.
So I can step. That's resilience too. You have to, I'm all about reflecting, right? Whether it's you journal or you do yoga, or like for me, I run. I just get my mind clear to refrag the brain. And that's how I have found a way to do it. Whatever works for you, you have to be able to reflect, figure out where you're at and how you want to go forward.
I love that. I love that. So we have a question from Sean Lott. Do you think there is a better understanding of womanhood complexities among your male counterparts?
That's a really interesting question. I think there is, now that we are not in the single digits in a lot of the places that I'm at, we've increased. I know in the services we're at about 20% women now with the entrance. So that growing knowledge, it makes us better. It makes us not, like for myself being the only woman in the room. Now there are 3 or 4, and it allows us to kind of elevate the voices that were sometimes used to be spoken over. I've definitely noticed that. I think people are also in many different sectors. We're just starting to ask questions we were afraid to ask. And I definitely find that on my podcast, that I think I'm speaking to this one audience of a lot of women, and it's amazing. The men that listen and they say, oh, I didn't know women talked about that. Like, I always wanted to ask that question, but I always felt too embarrassed. And it's like, next time, just ask. Because I guarantee you, there are so many women that would love to be able to tell you this, that how, sometimes it's exhausting attending panels or courses and not reading one book by a woman, or not seeing, one face that looks like them, a voice that sounds like them. Sometimes it's just representation is so important because it connects you and you feel like, yeah, I'm on this team. They want to see me here. It is. I think that's something that I have brought up quite often to my male counterparts, especially now that I'm a little more senior in the Army. I'll tell some of my bosses, like, when I leave and I'm not here, you have 0 women in command. Like, you need to find more of me to ensure that we continue with this. Different voices will amplify and represent different leaders.
Absolutely. I love that. And that's the beauty of conversations like this and the work that you're doing. I love when men join in on conversations like this, because when they go back to their offices or meetings, wherever they may be conducting business, if they're looking around the table and, like you said, they don't see a woman or, a person, a minority, a person of color,
Yeah.
the red flag should raise in their head and say, I'm missing a different perspective here, that could potentially contribute to this discussion. And we need to seek out different people, for these meetings. Everyone shouldn't always look the same. And so I know, as I was starting out junior in my career, attending meetings and things like that, it did bother me too. When I would go
Yeah.
into a meeting and I'm like, where are the women? Where are they at? Or I
Yeah.
told you earlier, if I walk into a room and I see a woman sitting at the head of the table, I'm not gonna lie, I smile. I mean, it just makes me proud. Yeah,
Yeah.
but times are changing. So, what advice would you give to someone, a woman who is afraid to step into a leadership role?
So I think sometimes women, and sadly, there's a ton of academic evidence for this as well. There's a job out there, right? A
Mm-hmm.
woman, she'll apply when she's 90 to 95% meets all the criteria, all the qualification. A man, maybe 50%, he meets it, he'll still apply. So we are perpetually over prepared, and we wait because it's not the right time, or I haven't got
Mm-hmm.
those skills yet. Regardless of where you're at on the Sheryl Sandberg spectrum, you got to move forward and lean in. You
Mm-hmm.
have to start to look at, there's no time like the present. And so
Mm.
raising your hand and volunteering is never a bad thing. And especially, you don't even, I think the other kind of complexity to that too is, you'll grow as a leader. There's no person that steps forward and magically they came with all those pre-built skills. That's what leadership does. It actually makes you better by being in those positions. So challenging yourself to get into that position, walking forward. I like that. Take a leap of faith. Yes, go for it. Nike had a great slogan, right? They still do. Just do it. It's
Yeah,
so
just do it.
classic.
Yeah.
That's why people really appreciate that when you're a leader and you're even vulnerable. Hey, this is the first time I've stepped in a leadership role. I really need help trying to, everybody wants to feel empowered and feel like they're helping you as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love that. Yeah. Even like you said, it goes back to vulnerability again. You just did it again. I just stepped in this position. I'm uncomfortable. Who can help me here? I mean, not pretending to be perfect.
Right.
That's the exhausting part that we don't need to continue to do. So if people are
Absolutely.
saying, you're talking to me. Yep, you're talking to me. Take a leap of faith. I need to do it. Lean in, as the book says, just lean
Yep.
in. The universe wants you to be a little bit braver right now. And Latita said, do it.
I like it. Do it afraid. That is
Yeah.
true, right? Do something. Eleanor Roosevelt said this. Do something that scares you every day.
Yeah.
Every day. Yeah. Yeah. I agree with that. If there are a couple things in the world that I'm in right now, I stepped into the cyber arena. I did not code my entire life. I did not live in this world, but I'll tell you, I have to learn something new every single day. And it's awesome. It is really phenomenal to stretch myself. Being a lifelong learner, I think, being a lifelong leader, it helps.
I'm so happy that you mentioned that you're in the cyber field, because that's obviously a male dominated field in the military as well. Yeah, heavily. And we just had a comment from Linda. She said, sometimes our voices are not heard. So
Yeah.
how can, what advice do you have for people like Linda who are just saying, they're underrepresented and they just don't feel heard?
Linda, great point. And what I would, second that, find your advocates out there. Somebody that's sitting in a meeting with you, and they're usually like, let's say you have a sidebar conversation, and they're like, yeah, I agree with that. I agree. Ask them, hey, I'm going to bring this point up in the meeting. Can you do me a favor and advocate for me and echo it? But when they echo it, and this often happens a lot of time with men, if you don't preset this point, they'll say it, and then everybody will look at them and be like, oh, great point, Tim. That's a wonderful job. And it's like, what Linda just said it.
Hello.
It was Linda's idea. Didn't we hear that? But if Tim goes, no, John, that was actually Linda's idea. That was her comment. I was just echoing her point, her statement. I mean, not only I have done this multiple times, and it's just like I get the point, I get the thumbs up, and then I also get a look at whoever advocated for me, and I'm like, that's right, I got your back. Whatever you need next time, and that really will help you not only grow in kind of stature wherever you're at, but it prevents other people from walking on you. And if that advocate or those other people that are in the room, you kind of have your back. A lot of times I see it quite often is women get stepped on in conversations. And boy, if it isn't evident in the Zoom world, right? If somebody's talking, yada, yada, yada. It's like, thank you for taking up 75% of the airspace. You've talked nonstop there, Mr. Man. And so I have found like, hey, if you set rules like, okay, we're only going to talk for 2 minutes and timer's on, just little things that like self-limit, and you do it to a lot of different people, that one noisy person over and over, you can start to shut them down a little bit.
I love that. We can only talk for 2 minutes. Time is on.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I can't wait to use that. If any of y'all use that, please let me know, because that sounds pretty fun and exciting. I mean, but honestly, Linda's right. I've been in a ton of meetings where, there's a woman at the head of the table. She's obviously in charge. And, the men are just talking over her and not letting her get her point across. And it's very disturbing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we've done things with like back when we had huge offices, like you throw a cush ball or something, an object, like you provide that and only the person with it talks. Now it's, anybody that works for me now would be laughing right now. I am like super strict on meetings. Like, okay, this will only be 30 minutes. I used to have literal stand-up meetings where you had to, if you were body abled, you had to stand up around your desk or you had to wheel your chair over. It's like, all right, ready, go. We have 10 minutes. Nobody wants to stand for more than 10 minutes in this area. And so it really kept people like, what's your point? What's your point? It versus like the pontificating, I'm going to make 50 great points. It's like, no, one thing, let me know what it is.
I love that. I look at you and it's coming very clear to all of us that you have a great deal of confidence. And you walk into a meeting, you know exactly what you need to get out of it, obviously. Did that just grow and develop as you matured in your career?
It's definitely strengthened. I was recalling the other day to a friend. I remember being like in 6th or 7th grade and going to my dad and like, none of the boys like me, Dad. Why? And he's like, it's not a bad thing, honey, but you really intimidate them. And I was like, how do I not intimidate? And so, but that's a good thing, right? Like I love being around people that are just, hey, I know where my power source comes from. Mm-hmm. I use that to, especially in where I'm at right now with this business that I run. I want to empower other women. I want to be infectious with the fact that you can bring that confidence level up. You just have to work at it. You have to rehearse it. You have to practice it, get comfortable. And then you'd be amazed just by showing a little bit of confidence, how much further you can go.
I absolutely love that. And it's so amazing because obviously you did not change. You did not dim your light, and you met someone, that accepts you as you are and your strength. And, that same personality has, put you into this wonderful position to lead other people. And now you're mentoring people. So, I sometimes I can't stand, or I don't like when someone tries to force a woman to be different and she can't, be tough or rigid or, strong. And I just love that you continue to be exactly who you are.
Yep.
So that's awesome. So you talked about your power source. What type of support structure do you tend to lean on in general, but even when you're going through a challenging time? How do you cultivate your circle?
I think I've been really lucky to have a lot of, you have, just like mentors, sometimes you have long lasting friends, you have some like medium term friends, and then those short term. So I'm going to turn back to mentors again, and why they're so important to have great mentors. We all have points in our life where we either want to pivot, start something new, or we're working for somebody that you just don't, it's that like awful boss that you never want to have. Leaning on people that have either been there or can help you get through it they're incredibly important. I always call them, they're like the gold level mentor, somebody that's been there a long time. They've been through many different jobs and they can help you maneuver through it. Now, there's a really good book, and I don't mean to cuss here, but I'm telling you, if you have a bad boss, you got to check out The No Asshole Rule. This book is phenomenal. It gives great advice. And it helps you get through it. And I love the analogy of, if you're in a tough time and you have a really toxic work environment, think of it like rafting, right? You're going down the rapids and it's just like throwing you in this little boat that you're in, and you fall out of the boat and now you really got a bad boss, and it's just every day your water's splashing and you don't know where the rocks are. You got to go feet first, and you just got to ride the waves. You have to go through the rapids and you'll make it through to the other side, to the calmer water. But don't try to fight it. And sometimes when you're in that environment and everything is going sideways, just recognize, I'm gonna stay calm. I'm gonna ride through this awful rapid and make it to the calm water. That happens because in most jobs and most environments, either you or that awful toxic boss or leader, one of you is going to move. Most of the time, you're not doing this for like a decade. It's a year, maybe a little. We've been through a pandemic year, and sadly, we lost so many people. But man, we made it through that. So we're tougher than we realize.
Yes, absolutely. And like you said, a lot of times, sometimes it's the woman or someone who feels like they're the less dominant person who ends up leaving. And it's unfortunate because an organization loses a great individual that was really contributing because, they may have had a toxic leader.
Right.
So Brooklyn Naima, she just made a statement that how does she come off as a powerful woman, but not also as an angry woman or overly intimidating? Do you have any advice for her?
I do. And Brooklyn, you make a really good point here that there are points with identity too, that, I think the term to include that you stated here, an angry Black woman, or that label that gets put on people, that other B word that, I've heard every now and again, it's hurtful. I mean, I got to admit, there are times when people have kind of said, well, this guy that worked for you, he said this about you. And it's like, okay, that's not fun to hear, but understanding if they feel that way, if they feel intimidated, that's on them. That's their insecurity. It's not me. I'm not making you feel something. I am leading you as a boss. And if you're a woman that not only is assertive, but you hold people to the standard and accountability, that's your job. That's why you're the leader. And so you wouldn't expect that of, you wouldn't expect that of someone else. It really is hard. Another one that I find is that when I talk about being ambitious, a lot of women like wring their hands and like, oh, I can't really talk about like wanting to get a raise or make more money, because then they'll think I'm not in it for the glory of just giving back. And I'm like, no, why would you work for free? Like, why would you take that? You take your ambition and grow it into something that makes a better environment for everyone. So when those terms get thrown around, I've kind of embraced it. I'm like, that's on you, buddy, not on me, because I'm going to keep moving forward. And another term I say quite a bit, Brooklyn, is water off a duck's back. Just let it roll. That doesn't stick. And here's my other one. Never read the comments. In any article I read, anything, I mean, you got to, in a social media, you got to read some of the comments, but like, it's just business. Never read the comments when the crazy people go out. That's why I'm like the underbelly of America on Twitter. Go to the good.
I love that. That's a good point. That's another good point. Linda said she calls it assertive, not aggressive. You're
Yes,
so right. I love
very
that.
good.
Their problem, not mine. You've given so many great tips. I'm so happy. Everyone's really enjoying it. I'm so
This is
thankful.
good.
Yeah,
Oh, I like
definitely.
it. Don't confuse your anger with passion. That is good. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. I use it. Passion's used a lot too. My new one's like my zest and zeal, because a lot of people don't use those terms. So
No, not at all, but I
they
like
don't feel
it.
any like, oh, I feel zesty today. There you go.
You've had so many amazing experiences that you've shared with us today. How do you feel like it's overall shaped your life and who you've become?
I can honestly say I am incredibly honored to have spent over 2 decades of my life serving the country in the military, and I mean that from the
Mm,
bottom of my heart. Is that I walked into this field in national security thinking, I'm going to do it for a couple of years and then go back home, get a law degree, you do something else. I stayed in because I loved soldiering, and I realized
mm,
I am with the less than 0.5% of America that raise their right hand and say, I want to do something for the good of the country. And so few people have the distinct honor to wear the uniform. And I get to be a part of their journey. And there are still people to this day that write to me. Actually, when you posted this, one of my former soldiers that I deployed to in 2004 back in Afghanistan, he wrote, and he's like, you're still commanding. Like you're still leading
oh,
people, man. That's so cool. You will always be my company commander. And to have that kind of impact on someone's life, I think it keeps me going, and it really it makes me grounded and makes me realize that I've been a part of somebody's journey. It's a great feeling.
I bet. I bet. That sounds so amazing and so wonderful. So, what would you say, as you continue to progress into your career and develop your business and continue to mentor others, what do you think is your new mission in life?
My new
And why
mission,
is it?
yes, I'm continuing in command right now. I'm having a great time with Cybercom and enjoying that new crazy world. But I do know that each of us in uniform at some time we kind of have to take it off. We have to hang it up and move on to that next journey. And so I would like to try and do something probably either in the consulting world or in government here. I live in DC, so perfect opportunity doing something else. But as long as I can start to bring women into this environment, I think that will
Mhm.
continue to kind of fill my cup.
And I'm sure you're going to be extremely successful at doing such. This has been amazing. I want to, encourage everyone to go to Colonel Candid. This is her Facebook page, where you can continue to follow her and her journey and all the amazing things that she's going to do throughout the DoD, throughout the civilian sector, and just more, and just to continue to learn from Candice and all of her wonderful experience. Candice, I want to ask you, is there any final thoughts or anything else that you want to share with our audience today?
Yeah, I am I'm a newfound podcaster that I'm
Mm-hmm.
learning. That's a new skill I'm learning. And I'll tell you, I am always up for suggestions for guests. So my focus is really building mentors and leaders in national security. But I talk with a real wide variety of people. I don't just stick to the Department of Defense or government employees. And that's kind of what actually led us to meeting each other, is
Yeah.
that just expanding that circle and network. So if you have someone you're like, I would love to hear from that person, I'm amazed at the people that say yes. Like a lot of people are like, yeah, sure, I'll talk to you. I'm like, oh my God, I can't offer you any money.
I know.
But I could have this really cool conversation tomorrow with Kim Scott, and she wrote Radical Candor, and she used to work for Google, and she's huge on now Just Work and the diversity and inclusion space. She started her own company. It's like, that's so cool.
Oh, that's amazing. So how can people get access to your podcast? Is it on your Facebook page?
Yeah, you can. It's also pretty much wherever you listen to podcasts. We're on Apple. It's Candid Leadership.
Candid leadership. You all make sure you tune in. Forums like that are extremely amazing. I mean, listen, it's not costing anyone a dime, but you have the opportunity to learn from people who are in spaces and who have had experiences that a lot of times will resonate with you, and that you can grow and develop and learn, continue to learn and develop yourself as well. So it's all about cultivating your circle. Podcasts like this one that Candice has. You have the opportunity to learn from wherever you are and just continue to grow. So I'm so grateful that you have shared this last almost hour with us, sharing all this information with us. I am going to be sure to even watch this episode myself over again just to make sure that I got all the information that you've shared with us today. And I just want to thank you again. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you for having me. This has been fantastic. And all the comments, I would love to get a printout and read these. And so when I'm having a bad day, you can't help, you rock, thank you.
Yeah. And they mean
I'll
it.
take it.
Really
I'm going to wake up to that tomorrow.
I'll be sure to send it to you, but they really do mean it. And I also want to mention for anyone who is new to our platform here at Bloom, like I said, we like to make this interactive, but this is a wellness platform dedicated solely to the enrichment and the empowerment of women. So we constantly have amazing women on here like Candice, who are an expert in their field or also an expert in their own wellness journey. So we just want to encourage you to tune in every Monday at 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern, and just continue to bloom with us, and just be vulnerable. Just like Candice said, be vulnerable. We have a new feature that I also want to put out there as well. I'm feeling a little high tech. So if you have your phone, if you turn on your camera, you can scan this barcode. Give you some time to try it. So once you scan this barcode, it will pull up all of our information here at Bloom, our showtime and things of such. If you convert it to PDF, you can go directly to the link to our Facebook page and you can like our page, but you can also share this information with other people. Great information is amazing for yourself, but it's even better when you share it with other amazing women. And we'd love to invite other men to join the conversation as well. So we want to thank you again, Candice, for being here. Thank you all for being with us. We hope you have a great night and continue to bloom, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.